Welcome to the Green Chair interviews. Today we have John von Heyking from the Department of Political Science. Welcome, John.
Thank you.
Today we would like to ask you, what is your philosophy of teaching?
So I basically have four goals that I seek to achieve in my teaching. The first is wisdom. Wisdom in terms of what political principles are these authors trying to articulate, and hopefully the students can learn something like that. The second actually is friendship.
Okay.
Because reading these texts takes a lot of work, and in the classroom it's kind of an intellectual adventure to work through them, and people learn a lot, not just about the text, but a lot about themselves. And so they're doing it together in a situation where they need to sort of trust others because they're kind of vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So friendship is the second goal. The third is a kind of practical wisdom, that it's not all kind of abstract knowledge, but they can kind of learn to see some of the principles that are involved that Plato or Aristotle or whoever are talking about, and then they can kind of apply that in their own understandings of contemporary politics. So practical wisdom is the third. The fourth would be, you might call, civic friendship or political friendship. I want my students to be able to be thoughtful and engaged citizens at the end of this, in being able to see how debates and political controversies play out and make meaningful contributions.
Okay, that's great. So keeping those four principles in mind, can you just maybe describe to us what a typical class of yours looks like?
Yeah, it's a conversational style. And even when I'm doing formal lectures and I'm going through materials, but frequently what we're doing is we're working our way through an argument in a specific text. And we talk about it. I want to get a few points across, but in doing so, I try to get my point across in a way that is open to their responses.
Can you maybe just go through some things in your class that have worked really well?
Yeah, it's kind of hit and miss. And I think a lot of it comes down to the type of reading we're doing, the type of questions that it engages. In politics, there's kind of different levels of questions that you can engage in. You can say, well, what is the best constitution? What are the best sort of institutions that one might set up in a society? At a certain level, the students find that quite interesting, but it doesn't quite sink in quite as deep as some other questions that you might find in some of the, say, in Plato's Republic, when we're asking kind of more fundamental personal questions, like how do you understand human excellence? What does it mean to be fair? What does it mean to be just? What does it mean to be a friend to someone? What does it mean to love someone? So these are kind of questions that I think allow students to engage in the texts at a more personal level. And then it's kind of up to me as a teacher to see, okay, how can we see the significance of these more personal questions as they operate in our political lives?
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So can you just let us know maybe what do you do to prepare for teaching a class?
Yeah. Well, you have to know which readings to address. You have to identify what sort of questions you want to address for that specific class. And also trying to think of, okay, what sort of questions would be most pertinent to a 20-year-old, right? What are the sort of issues kind of that they're facing? And a lot of that's kind of guesswork, but a lot of it is also just, by that time you get to know your students a little bit, so you can kind of understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, that sounds great. It sounds like you really relate to your students, and that's really important.
Yeah, it's always an aspiration, right? You always kind of fall short, but that's kind of the responsibility I think we have as teachers to our students.
Definitely, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. It's really
My
great
pleasure.
to have you at the Green Chair interviews. Thanks.
Thank you for asking me.